Well, good morning and welcome to City Talk. It's a weekly radio program, it's a podcast, it's a TV program where the city of Waco is wanting to communicate to you the great things happening in Waco. I'm Larry Holsey and I'm your host for this program. Today I'd like to welcome our brand new police chief, Dr. Sheryl Victorian.
Well,
Sheryl, nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You've been on more interviews than anybody I can name, and your excitement of coming to Waco is explosive to everyone
Yes,
in the area. We're so thankful that we have selected you as our police chief, and I know the crew that you work with are excited, the council, the city management, and I mean, at the March 15th, I'm going to call inauguration, but when you were sworn in
Yes.
publicly, you had such a following, not only of the community, but of the people from where you come from. And that's what we want to focus on. I want to focus on now, because if you want to find out information about Dr. Victorian, and that's the last time I'll say that, when you want to find out about Sheryl, you go to our website, waco-texas.com, and you'll see an extensive resume of her accomplishments. And we'll touch on a few of them, but she is definitely a well-qualified individual to lead any police department, but we're thankful that you can lead the Waco Police Department.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to talk more about some of your Houston experience, because you had a huge following here for your inauguration as the police chief from the Houston Police Department. So much family down there. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, I want to talk family about Sheryl Victorian. Yeah. I want to find out about Sheryl's childhood, your family background, what makes you the person you are, because we're all people first.
Yes.
Then we develop the job skills that we were given, the talents and things, and then be able to use those for the good of the community. And we can talk about that later. But tell me about Sheryl. Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood and your family like?
So I grew up in Southeast Houston in a neighborhood called Sunnyside. That's really, really very popular in Houston. It's in the southeast area of Houston. And I have two older sisters and a younger brother. And I'll tell you that initially I was deathly afraid of police officers.
Okay.
It wasn't because my family had any negative interactions with the police but for some reason I was afraid. My mom used to take me to one of our neighborhood stores, and there was a constable there, and she would just try to get me to shake this gentleman's hand. I was 4 or 5 years old, and I would literally fall out and embarrass her, right? And so I was afraid of police officers. And then it didn't help that a couple of years later, this prankster on our street, we had left to go out of town. We came back to town, and he was like, "Hey, the police are looking for you." And I was like, "What?" And I was only 7, 8 years old. And he was like, "Yeah, the helicopter landed on the street," because the Houston Police Department's flight path for their helicopter would fly. It was across our home, right? And so I believed him. I was like, "What?" He was like, "It landed on the street, and they asked for Sheryl, and they said, is she a Taurus?" And I didn't know any better, and I was just like, "Oh, yeah, what are you?" So I was afraid, right? And so anytime my neighbors and I were out playing, anytime that helicopter, I would hear it, we'd go hide, because I thought the police were after me, right? And so it wasn't until I was 9 years old. My dad passed when I was 9. He had a massive heart attack, and I was 9. And we were leaving the cemetery to go bury him. We buried him out of town, outside of Houston. And the solo officers that were there, and the compassion they showed our family, and the respect that they received along the way to escort us out of Houston, it really began to change my perspective, and I became more interested in policing, right? And then a couple of years later, of course, with Miami Vice, I always wanted to be an undercover police officer, and my girlfriend, who is the vice mayor pro tem in Houston, we've been good friends since high school. She says that I used to come to school dressed in blue jeans and a blazer, like Philip Michael Thomas, because I really loved Miami Vice. And sure enough, I went to college and studied administration of justice in undergrad. As soon as I got my degree, I joined the Houston Police Department and became a police officer. So that's my childhood, just, and the path that I taken. So
Well, you have two sisters and a brother.
Yes.
What do they do?
So my oldest sister is a teacher in Houston in the Galena Park School District. My middle sister is a medical records administrator with Harris County Health Department, and my younger brother works for Union Pacific for the railroad. He's an engineer with the railroad.
So you have deep roots in the Houston area.
I do.
And that's not
everything.
That's not when I say I'm sorry.
No. It's my home, and it's who's made me. It's the city that made me who I am. So, I lost my mom just last year, January the 4th, and so I was telling people that if this would have happened or the position would have became open last year, I probably would have never even applied. I wasn't in a place to apply yet or really leave Houston. So I just think that the timing of this position and the opening was just perfect for me, and it just worked out.
I think it's very interesting when you talked about your helicopter experience and when your childhood and you had the fear of police. That happens to a lot of people, a lot of African Americans especially. There is a fear of police. And that's got to help you embrace that and better understand how to encourage people to get over that, because it's so important to be able to have community involvement. And we'll talk a little bit maybe later on about the community engagement, neighborhood engagement that the city councils are very dedicated about. But it's getting people to know the fact that police are there to protect everybody's rights and that type of thing. So, that from a childhood standpoint, that could be a lesson learned. And I'm sure a way to do that. So I'm glad you shared that with us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But there's also deeper roots in policing and the minority community, with historically the roles that police officers played doing civil rights, and enforcing Jim Crow laws. So we could talk about that's a different show. It can go on, and I even developed a course in Houston in conjunction with a university professor at the University of Houston, where we built this trust. We created this course called Building Trust from Trauma, and it talks about the historical impacts of policing on minority communities and how that plays out in today's atmosphere and in this world. So.
Well, I'm sure growing up in Houston and working for 28 years in the Houston Police Department, through various roles, and we'll probably get into some of that maybe a little bit, but you've experienced the big city as it is, and all the challenges that environment even brings comparatively to what we maybe would have here in Waco. So, there's certainly tragedies and things throughout our world that's happening continually, even just as of late, just like the DPS officer Walker, and that sad the situations that are happening. That police and law enforcement are. So you talk about your Houston PD family, because when you came up for and I'm going to continue to say inauguration, when you're swearing in on March the 15th, I think it was, huge crowd in the Brazos Room of the Convention Center. You had a big area of Houston Police Department, friends, and I'm going to call them family, because creating a work family is always important in any environment. Yes, talk about the work family that you had in Houston.
So, as you said, I spent 28 years. That's more than half of my life with the Houston Police Department. And through the years, I've met a lot and worked with a lot of amazing people. And just to have that respect and those friendships and that love throughout those years, and seeing them take a day off. Burn a day to come to spend this special moment with me was just absolutely incredible. And so over the years, I've developed friendships with old partners. I had retired partners that were there who came to support me, as well as active police officers. And then I had mentees and people that I've reached down to help prepare them for leadership roles that were there. And then, of course, my bosses, and that was just absolutely amazing to have the executive team from Houston to come to support me. My old chief, who is now leaving Houston and going to Miami, he prides himself on making chiefs. So he gives us an aspiration the day that he offers us a position on his executive leadership team, that he wants us to go out somewhere. He wants us to learn what we can and then take what we can and go and apply that somewhere else to be chiefs of police. And I'm just so grateful that I have had that opportunity. And so it's just a lot. Those will always be my friends. They will always be my family. And it was just an amazing day.
Obviously, a very strong mentoring program.
Yes.
And I'm sure now you've embraced that and have that and bring that to Waco. And what a compliment. And so many times, though, when somebody applies for a job at another location, another city, for example, you have to hush. You don't want to do anything because you don't want the people back home to know that you're looking or whatever else. But it's great that they were, and that's such a unique, that's what I get into. That's what's a unique family atmosphere that want the best for you, first of all. They've seen you climb for 28 years through the ranks, and you were in many different departments, and you're welcome to talk about that in a minute, but you've climbed through the ranks of many departments and made friends and been able to keep an interesting balance. How do you take a friendly balance? I know you coworkers right away, but then to have the authority, you as a key leader, an assistant chief, over a big part of the city, how do you balance that with the friendship part of it?
So when I first became a police officer, I had always had aspirations of at least being an assistant chief with the city of Houston. And throughout that process, or throughout my tenure with the police department, one of the things that I said that I would not do was change. The person that I went in there on day one was going to be the person I was when I did reach that aspiration of becoming an assistant chief. So I think that's one thing that people loved and appreciate about me is because I'm honest, I'm fair, I'm consistent, and yeah, along the way, whether we're working together or whether I become your supervisor, you know, we gain a friendship or earn a friendship because we have earned that much trust between each other. And I know how to just draw that fine line between leadership and friendship. And I think most people respect the fact that I am consistent, that I am fair, and that I am honest. And when I do have to make those decisions, that they know Sheryl, the person, as a friend or as a person or, you know, in my character. And so they may not like the outcome, but they know that the process was fair. And so, you know, I think one of the challenges that I had when I first promoted to an official leadership role with the police department was managing people that I've worked with that we were friends. But I found it to be a very smooth transition because people respected who I was as a person. And so I haven't had a whole lot of challenges, but I do know that as friendly and as gregarious as I can be, when I have to draw that line or when I feel like somebody's trying to take advantage of my kindness, I know how to draw that kind, and I know how to do it professionally. I know how to do it diplomatically. So it's worked great for me so far.
Well, for those of you on radio and our podcast, you're not able to see the beautiful smile she has. But it's respect, first of all.
Yes.
And I think every human being wants to be respected in their own world. And if you trade that off back and forth, what your respect for me is and my respect for you, we know that we're going to have to agree to disagree sometimes. Exactly. And there's those situations. So I think that authority, but then that friendship, I think people would greatly appreciate that. And I like the attitude you have. You don't change. You lay it out. This is the way it is. And we're going to be friends, but we're also going to realize we're having to work together. So.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, those are just obviously good things. Now back to your inauguration one more time. You had a lot of your family were here too.
Yes.
Talk about that because that's showing their support, and they're losing you from the Houston area after all your life you've been in the Houston area, and you're moving to Waco. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But talk a little bit about your family and how that again is a sad thing for them. But it's great support.
Yes. So my sisters and my brother and I were really, really, very close. Of course, my brother, we may talk to him once a week or get a text or something on social media. But my sisters and I talk nearly every day. So when I came home and made the decision that I was going to apply for this job, and initially that was apprehension. They were like, "What? 3 hours away? No, you can't do that. You can't find nothing local." And just after a few minutes of talking talking, and they know what my goals and aspirations are. They know what my ability are. I mean, the script just flipped, and they were like, you know what? It's 3 hours. We can make it. You know, we'll be able to get to you. Their concern was, you don't have family there. You don't know anybody there. You know, but and then the conversation changed, and they were like, you know what? Whatever you want to do, we're on board with you. If you get it, then you know we're here to support you. And they have been my entire life. And I always say, you know, I'm a baby. I need to stay close to home. I need to stay next to my family and close to my family. But I decided to step out on faith. And during this whole process, I prayed about taking this job. I prayed about the whole process, and I always told God, if it's your will, then this is what I want to do. And that happened during the whole process. And so when I was offered this job, I knew that it was his will, and I was very comfortable in accepting. There was no apprehension. I just stepped out on faith, and I knew if he had brought me that far, that, you know, he'd take me even further. So yes. So initially when they were asking me about the number of people I thought I would have, you know, I knew we had to make the number small because of COVID. I was like, I think we'll have about 50 come in from Houston. And then when I started getting, okay, I need to bring such and such, I was like, okay, about 65. And then all of a sudden it was higher, and I was like, okay, we better make this 100. And so thank God that they were able to accommodate us, because I had cousins, church members, of course, my siblings, and everybody wanted to be here to support. And it just meant so much to me. And, you know, of course, I'm having visitors. We're going to come visit, you know. So at some point I may have to say, no, I just need a weekend to myself. But no, but it was an incredible experience, and I'm so grateful for the support of my family and my friends.
If you just joined us, we're visiting with our new police chief, Dr. Sheryl Victorian, who is a delightful lady who has obviously accomplished a lot of things in her career, 28 years in the Houston Police Department. But one of the things I'm going to follow up on that last comment we were talking about, all those people, your family and everything else, your next role now is trying to get them to move up here. Okay.
Look,
and you gave it up, so, you know, Waco is a great place. Get away from that big city and all that stuff, and the humidity and all the things.
You know, it's funny. I went home I'm sorry. I said that. I know I said home to my boss, and he was like, no. Waco is your home now. And you're visiting Houston today. So it was funny when I went back. After being there for about an hour, all of a sudden my head's hurting. I feel like I have vertigo, and my sinuses were acting. I was like, Houston's pollution. I need to get away from here and get back to Waco. I didn't feel it.
There you go.
But yes, I think Waco can add a few 100 people more to the population, even if it's temporary. So because everybody loved the city when they visited.
That's right.
Yes.
We are in unprecedented times throughout the world, especially regarding policing and things like that. Challenging times, you know, from the George Floyd thing, and just recently the DPS officer Walker, and just things constantly happening against law enforcement. Your experience in the Houston Police Department, you went through various departments, various roles and things. What would you say was one of your most challenging jobs or positions or incidents maybe that you had to deal with in your early career?
I think one of the most challenging things for me when I first became a police officer, the only thing that I was concerned about was putting the bad guy in jail. That was it. I wanted to go out, have fun, work undercover, be able to put the bad guy in jail. But then when I started, we worked in major offenders, and I did a lot of undercover work in major offenders. I was there for 11 years. And when you start seeing some of the same people over and over that you're putting in jail, I just started maturing in the field and realizing that we couldn't arrest our way out of everything. And so shortly after that time, I promoted to sergeant, and I started seeing opportunities for prevention and intervention and understanding how critical the role of community policing and community engagement was in preventing and intervening in crime. And I always like to say prevention and intervention, you know, before apprehension. But don't get me wrong, there are some people that just need to go to jail, you know, and be held accountable. But there are some social issues that are, you know, impacting some of the reasons people are finding themselves in and out of the criminal justice system. So I started looking for opportunities to engage with the community, especially with our youth, because we had an increase in gang activity in Houston, getting involved with our youth and showing them a different path. And, trying to help them to make better decisions. So I think that transition from just putting people in jail and that apprehension to seeing the big picture as a supervisor, as a leader, and someone that's going up in the organization was very, very critical for me. And that's what I'm seeing here. I'm able to see the big picture now and the importance of both community policing, neighborhood engagement, as well as the law enforcement side, the policing side, where we have to make decisions to put people in jail and hold them accountable for their actions.
Absolutely. Well, again, we've the times that we're in, especially for the black community, the distrust of police departments, even going as far as the unfunding and defunding and all that type of situation. How do you approach that? What is your style or thinking on management of our police department now compared to what maybe you were in Houston dealing with that? Because I don't remember police Houston having that much issue. And I know it only takes one bad cop.
Yeah.
And how many police officers were there in Houston?
5,300.
5,300 compared to our, 210 or
60.
20, something like that. Something like that.
Yes, sir.
A lot smaller.
Yes.
But it only takes one.
Only
And that one bad person, sad, can blacken the whole chart of great things that have been done.
Yes,
so, again, I may be putting you on the spot because you've only been here maybe 30 days or so, but how do you try to manage that and build that trust in the community with the police department?
So let me just give you a little background. Hopefully I have a moment to give you a little background on how I the George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and his background in Houston. So the day after it happened was the first time I saw the video on the news, and I cried.
Oh,
I cried because a man was, calling out for his mom, and a police officer, someone who had taken the same oath that I did, let his pride get in the way of him doing the right thing now. And so that really bothered me. And so I knew that moment that policing was going to change in this world forever. And all the work that we had done up until this point, trying to build our relationships, we were going to have to start over. And that proved to be right. 2 days later on that Thursday night, that was a Tuesday night, 2 days later on that Thursday night, when the protests began, they had already been going on in Minneapolis, and I saw them burn down a police station. That broke my heart, because policing was something that I had always wanted to do since a teenager. Exactly. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, these people. And so I took it personal. I was like, these people hate me. This is what I do. All people are not, like Derek Chauvin or whatever. So anyway, I knew we had our work cut out for us. And we got through the protest, and a lot of people are saying these are challenging times for policing, but I believe that this is an opportunity for us. This is an opportunity for us to show who we really are and what we're made of. It's going to require us to do some perspective taking. It's going to require our officers to do perspective taking. It's going to require our communities to do perspective taking, because we can get this profession to where it should be. One thing that I like to tell our younger officers, and even some of our older officers, when we're coming in contact with citizens and maybe they're not as respectful to us as we are to them, and I have to remind them, it's not Sheryl that they're mad at. It's not, you that they're mad at, because they don't know you. Yeah. They don't know that outside of this uniform that you're a father, that you're a mother, that you're a sister, that you're, a son, a daughter. All they know is this uniform and the weight that is carried with this uniform, all the responsibilities, are what their experience with someone else in a uniform, are the experiences that they've seen with other people in the uniform. So we can't take that personal. But again, it's going to require us to do some perspective taking. It's going to require us to work together and have more positive engagements with our community for us to get this right. And I think that we have an opportunity to do that.
I love the word opportunity. It's always been the guiding word in my world, in my life, because I think as we're created and brought to this world, as you indicated, you have a purpose.
Yes.
God had a purpose when he put you here on this planet, and he gave you talents and abilities just as he did me or everybody else. And we all have an opportunity.
Yes.
And it's an opportunity to change lives, to make a difference to people. And I say that about this TV station here that we have. If we can touch one life in the program we're talking just like right now, if we can touch and change one life, maybe get somebody that's listening to say, I think I want to be a police officer.
Okay.
She overcame that helicopter with his flying. That type of thing. So that is, but the other thing, Sheryl, is the fact that I can tell, and this makes a difference in every job, you own your job.
Yes,
and I say that in a personal way, the fact that it's personal to you. You take the police department across the country seriously. You take your job seriously. And you walk out the door and you're still a police officer in charge of, and you take it, and you basically own the Waco Police Department, because every police officer does.
Yes, sir.
And it's that person. I appreciate that attitude. And I think that, again, you're going to be extremely successful.
Oh,
now, before I don't think I have too many more questions I want to talk about changes and things. I know that'll come out later in the news and whatever else. I want to go back because I want to find out what Sheryl Victorian does once she walks away from the police department to have fun and do. What do you do to do to relax and get away from it?
Oh my goodness! I wish I had time to get away and relax right now. But the things that I like to spend time with my family. I do, and I love to travel. My favorite places are the beach and cruises. I've had a second birthday cruise canceled this year, but that's okay. I know it's coming. I have been vaccinated, and I'm encouraging everybody else to go get vaccinated so we can start traveling like we were again. And something else that I haven't had a chance to do recently, but I have a few under my belt, is I'm a playwright. I love to write Christian plays, and I have for several years, and we've had a few produced. We even had one done at the Wortham Theater in Houston, one of our youth plays that was absolutely phenomenal. So that's who I am off duty. Spend time with my little dog. Well, I say little, they're big dogs, with my dogs, but that's it.
Well, I know finding a new home in Waco and making a new home is challenging while you're still on the job as it is. And I know locating a property and finding a place, you're going to have to get a big place now, because if you got all the family, they're going to have to come and visit you now.
Yes,
you
that's the plan. That's the plan, and everybody's already claiming rooms, so that's the plan.
There you go. Sir. Well, exactly, and we always have the doors always here, and obviously whether it's a Magnolia or Baylor University or whatever else. So, and I know you don't have quite ties to Baylor because you were bachelor's degree from where did you go?
Texas Southern University.
Okay.
And then I went to University of Houston downtown for my master's, and back to TSU for my PhD.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But that's okay. I'm a Wacoan now.
Yeah.
That means I'm a Baylor Bears fan.
You have to be.
I have to.
That's right. Absolutely. So. Green and gold starting to show up a little bit more. So yes, I know your uniform doesn't have too much green and gold on it, but it's such a delight. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate, first of all, you're taking the time to come and be a part of our program today, because I just feel like it's so important for people, especially our radio people and our podcast people who can't see the picture of your beautiful face, and your smile is exuberating.
Thank you.
And that's a winning personality, and that's what's going to take our police department to the next level. You're starting with a great department, I feel like, but then being able to move into the leadership role and build those new friendships, just like you had at Houston. Phenomenal. And maybe if you need some resources, you can, and you have somebody, a vacancy here in Waco, you can maybe encourage some more of those people to come up here to be part of the Waco Police.
Yes, sir. You're right.
Dr. Sheryl Victorian is our police chief, and I say that with PhD because your academia background is so incredible, and your qualifications, but more so your personality. And that's the thing I'm so thankful for that you're bringing to the police department. Great leadership skills and ability, but mostly a loving, caring personality and everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us this morning.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
And I want to thank all of you all for joining us again for City Talk, and hope you'll join us next week. This program is produced by the Municipal Information Department of the City of Waco and is provided as a public service by this station.